On today's show, how is Russell Westbrook fitting in with the Denver Nuggets so far? Are the Nuggets hungry enough to win another NBA title? And where does Denver rank amongst the Western Conference elite? It's all coming up on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you actually place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You can head on over to FanDuel.com and take a look at all the different odds available this football season. You can check out their parlay builder, who's going to win different divisions, conferences, season awards, or just the outright favorites to win this year's Super Bowl. Right now, the Chiefs plus 450, the Ravens plus 700, the 49ers and Lions both at plus 850, and then right behind them, the Buffalo Bills at plus 1,000. So for all those odds and so much more, be sure to check out FanDuel.com. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Nuggets, Ryan Blackburn. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nuggets. And Ryan, one of the most, I think, interesting storylines to follow this upcoming NBA season is going to be just how Russell Westbrook kind of fits in to the dynamic with the Denver Nuggets alongside Jokic and Murray and you know, all the familiar faces in Denver. So we've gotten a little bit of a sample of it so far in preseason. How has the Russ experience been to this point?
Yeah, it's been up and down. It's I think a lot like Russell Westbrook in general, right? He is a very up and down player. Just the expectations for him night to night. He could win you a game, he could lose you a game. There's no doubt about it. I think for Denver specifically, a lot of people get these two things confused. Russell Westbrook is a Reggie Jackson replacement. He is not a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope replacement. He's going to be Denver's sixth man off the bench. He's going to play about maybe 20 to 24 minutes per game in all likelihood. The role that he is going to play for the Nuggets, I think, is actually a very important one. And it's going to allow him to do the things that he does really well, which is create for other people, get downhill. He'll dominate the ball sometimes, which is not something he was really doing with the Clippers, having to play off ball as much as he was. But through a few preseason games so far, we've seen high turnovers at times. He shot the ball pretty well, if I'm being honest. But the most important thing that he's done is set the table for the rest of the bench, and we've liked what we've seen so far.
You know, you mentioned there a moment ago not viewing Russ as the KCP replacement. I think that's a fair thing to put out there. Now, the guy who is the KCP replacement, Christian Braun, injected into the starting lineup, maybe a little bit of a less than stellar offensive showcase through preseason, shot a total of 2 of 15. I want to make sure I get that number right. 2 of 15 from 3 in preseason play so far. These should be like 4 or 5 alarm fire bells ringing when you think about what the Nuggets spacing is going to look like this season with Christian Braun in the starting lineup, right?
Undoubtedly. To be fair, small sample size, make sure to get that moniker out of the way here. But 2 of 15 is obviously not great. He was not elite as a corner three-point shooter in this last season where KCP most excelled. That's something where Christian Braun's just going to have to be better. Christian Braun was a really great above-the-break three-point shooter last year, and he shot 38% from 3 overall. The real question that I have about him is the volume, is the three-point attempts, is the threat. How are teams going to respond when Christian Braun gets an open 3? Are they going to close out very hard, trying to prevent that shot? Or are they going to say, hey, here, we're good with that. Let's see you take him. Let's see you make him. And Christian Braun he'll cook some teams at some points, but he will also probably be, I think, a bellwether for whether Denver's offense is doing well. If he is maybe 0 of 2 in a game and then gets another 3, if he passes up that look, that is very concerning. So we'll see what happens in the regular season. The initial prognosis is not awesome, but I do think that Julian Strawther, who has really come on strong for Denver's bench, he had the most points in the entire preseason in the NBA. he's going to get a lot of those minutes too. So that's going to be kind of a tandem thing for those two guys trying to replace KCP.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, cobble it together. Insert the Moneyball quote here, right? We can recreate KCP in the aggregate.
That's exactly it. Absolutely.
Now, look, earlier, Michael Malone did say, he was asked at one point through preseason or somewhere in the training camp, if there's a sense of revenge in the air for the Nuggets this season. His answer was maybe a little concerning because he goes, I haven't seen it. And I don't know if this is just a Maloneism. I was there. Okay, all right, give us the insight.
I was there. So he had been pissed based off of answering some previous questions. Denver just lost by 30 to the full strength OKC Thunder. He was then asked by a foreign reporter who came in just kind of off the wall. Do you guys is this a revenge season for you guys? And then he said, I haven't seen it. He was just kind of irritated by the timing of the question more than anything else. And he kind of let his emotions get away with him. But I do think in general that is something that Nuggets fans are trying to figure out. Is this present? Are you guys actually pissed off about the way that the season ended last year? Or is this just kind of the day-to-day? That's always the fear when you win a championship, right? How hungry can you get after you win? And Denver last year probably wasn't as hungry as they needed to be. This year, after losing, we'll see if that changes. That's where Russell Westbrook could potentially be an advantage.
Yeah, I do wonder a little bit. And some of this, we saw, last season there was the whole, okay, maybe, trying to chase the Thunder for the 1 seed a little bit and kind of gassing out maybe at the end of the season. And ultimately, how much of that edge or that hunger is there with this team? And that is that concern when you have a team that is so talented, as the Nuggets clearly are, where maybe at times you think, a team convinces itself, oh, well, we can just, flip a switch and we can just become that team that's hard to beat, or we can become that contender seemingly overnight. But that's not always the case with these top tier teams.
Absolutely not. And honestly, Denver for much of the season last year did a really good job of focusing up and doing the detailed things and making sure that you're on point, but they got tired doing it. They gassed themselves out trying to make it happen and trying to be detail oriented. Denver was a great team against sub 500 teams last year, which is something you need to do in order to have a high record. They're about 500 against the regular, plus 500 teams. And that's just sort of the formula that you need in order to have a pretty solid record in these times. But I tend to think that Denver at this point, they'll struggle with that this year because they're trying to work in some new guys, work in some new rotations, but they might be a better team for it by the end of it if they stick with the development, if they help kind of bring guys like Christian Braun, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther along. If those guys can actually be a part of the main group and are trusted by Michael Malone by the end of it, I think they can go through some growing pains along the way and be fine.
And those young guys could be the recipe, could be the ingredients you need to get some of that hunger back, some of that edge a little bit. Guys who maybe haven't achieved, the highest success that other guys have on the roster. Now, last thing I got for you, Ryan, before we let you get out of here, we did a few of these earlier this offseason, kind of power ranking the top teams in each respective conference, and it was always really fun, kind of getting some of the responses to these. So we're going to add an extra team in here at the top of the West. So if you had to power rank the 5 teams at the top of the West, which I'm going to go with, got the Nuggets in there, the Mavs, the Wolves, the Thunder, and I'm going to include the Suns in this. We're kind of fading the Clippers a little bit here based on last season and the offseason loss and all that, right? All right, glad I passed the test. All right, so if you had to power rank those 5 teams right now as we are on the precipice of the start of this next season, how would you do it?
Thunder in a tier of their own for sure. There's no doubt in my mind that they have earned that right based off of where they finished last season and who they added. I know that they've got some injuries, not as worried about them in the regular season. They'll find a way. I think if we're doing a regular season versus playoff thing, let me just clarify that. Is this where I think their title chances are? Is this how strong of a team I think they are? Or is this regular season finish?
Oh, let's just go with how strong of a team, because I feel like that's kind of a better blend of both how they're going to perform regular season and also their title chances, somewhere in the middle there.
Okay. Then I think, oh man, the next 3 are really tough behind OKC. I think that they've earned the top spot. I'm going to say Thunder 1, Nuggets 2, Wolves 3, Dallas 4, Suns 5. That might be a little bit shaky and it might sound a little bit homerific, I think that the Nuggets will probably have a lower record potentially in the regular season. They didn't get an opportunity to face the Mavs in the postseason, and I think they would have defeated the Mavs. And I also think the Wolves, they lost a little bit of the top end talent that they had with Karl Anthony Towns going, especially against a team like the Nuggets. It's going to be tough, though, because I think the Wolves will finish ahead of the Nuggets in the Western Conference this year. Their depth is a lot better. And like there's certainly things to be excited about for them, but I just don't necessarily trust Julius Randle in the playoffs. I think Dallas has an opportunity to kind of falter a little bit without some of the defensive guys that they have and over relying on some of the players that they are, like Klay Thompson. And then the Suns, they are rightfully in that top 5. I think that they're going to be a really good team. I think they're going to win 50 games. That's what I have them at right now. But I do think that there's just something off about what it's ultimately going to be in the playoffs for them. I think that they are schemable.
Okay, I like that breakdown. I'm gonna go ahead and get this out there. You pissed off a lot of Mavericks fans with ranking them at 4th, so they're gonna be in your mentions, and they're gonna be blowing you up. Go track them down on the Locked On Nuggets YouTube channel. Air your grievances over there. Go into the comments section. Let Ryan know what you think. Let us know in the comments section of this video what you think. But how does the Russell Westbrook experiment ultimately fare for the Denver Nuggets this season? Can Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and company kind of rediscover their hunger on their way to winning another title? You're gonna have us covered for all of that and so much more over at Locked On Nuggets. Ryan, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Thanks, Jackson. Really appreciate it.